Howdy, 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 my name is Anachi Sasuke, and welcome back to Let's Read Homestuck. Now, I apologize for that couple of days where there wasn't any episodes. I went to do recording, and I just felt like shit, and I couldn't do it. And I apologize, because I meant to have a lot of episodes ready to go for the whole week, and didn't do it. And I'm sorry about that. But anyway, in the last episode, Jade spoke to Dave, because she just saw Dave get killed by Beck Noir now. It's not Jack Noir anymore, now it's Beck Noir. And Jade is about to do something that was suggested heavily by future Dave, but he didn't say what it was because he's not Terezi. So, Jade, do what you're about to do. You don't know what you're about to do, but you've got to do something. You can't stand by and let that monster teleport murder people all day, and frankly, the suicide plan Dave mentioned sounds just plain stupid. Sorry, something just moved on my other screen. There must be a better way. Think, imagination. You suddenly remember the idea your awkward fairy dodgeball proposed. Maybe you were too hard on him. He was just trying to be nice, but he was an honest thing with his love of your grandmother. Hey, Trevor! I was thinking about your plan about, communing with my losses. Computer, why do you keep moving? What's happening over there? Okay. Maybe it's not a bad idea. Are you there? I guess you're off doing something else. Oh well, hope you're doing okay. Talk to you later. Garden Gnostics, he's pestering. Adios, Trader. Very adorable. I think it's just updating the fact that the files are getting longer. You don't think you can afford to wait around for him. This means the only other plan you can think of. One of last resort. Maybe it's for the best this way anyway. Who better to trust for the job? You prepare a delicious meal to summon your loyal lusts, you mean dog. Go upstairs to laboratory. Laboratory! You enter this spooky old lab. You don't come here often. Huh? For a split second there, you thought you just saw something flash on the fenestrated wall there. Probably just your mind playing spooky tricks on you. You never had any idea what that thing was for. I'm pretty sure that's Andrew Hussey. Again? Yeah, that's Andrew Hussey. Summon dog. Beckerel comes to me in the promise of a radiated state. He's such a good boy. He was That's his mouth? I thought that was his nose! Huh. Huh. You sure gonna miss him. Oh jeez. Jade, say hello! Hello! Hold on. Unlike that one episode, I am not currently getting down with the sickness. I just got a frog in my throat. Wait. Anyway, can you talk? Oh, good! I was starting to get worried there. What did you do? What did you do? What did you do? What did you do? Elsewhere? While the timer counts down with no particular clock stepping forward to claim it. The most important character in Homestuck finally regards the miracle of a new beginning. Lab. Drop. There it go. Snowball! That is the opposite of what she's supposed to be doing with her house. It's a Jadapalooza! What if she had prototyped Beck with the stuffed dog? Would that have turned Beck into a normal dog? The fenestrated wall has been broken. Lord English, reveal yourself. Behold. Andrew Hussey, don't actually turn out to be Lord English. What are you, a fucking idiot? Of course I'm not Lord English. How dumb would that even be? Jesus, this coat is huge. I'm swimming in this garish piece of shit. Would anybody fit in this thing? Disrobe. Why don't we cover this thing up? It'll be a real shame to spoil their little moment with this nonsense. That's better. Andrew Hussey, retire to your study. I retire to my heavily processed photograph of Andrew Carnegie's study, painstakingly retrieved from a Google image search. Greet MS Paint. Ms. Paint, you are doing a wonderful job. Thank you. It was also very thoughtful of you to switch the layer mode of your coat of paint to the overlay setting so it would not obscure the details of Mr. Carnegie's lavish room. Go check out Cal. That Ms. Paint is one classy prospecting lady. She's the model of grace and beauty. I'm always a bit flustered in her presence, especially when she carries that little pail around like that. Whereas this lazy sack of crap over here makes me sick to my stomach. Cal, goddammit. We were all supposed to dress up for this. It doesn't look like you even touched that nice suit I sewed for you. Let alone swapped your eyes with those billiard balls and make them alternate rapidly. This insubordination is putting me in a foul mood. It's bad enough I just had to take Falcor out behind the woodshed and blow his brains out after he caught the rabies. Andrew Hussey, pull up the old Underwood. Got a lot of typing to do. Hope the ribbon holds up. I should probably bust out that shitty drawing of myself again so I can type as quickly as possible. Bust out shitty self-portrait. Whoops. Need the felt duds. Hang on. Apply duds. He's wearing the sepulchritude shirt. Awesome. Works for me. Begin typing. No, this is not nearly fast enough. Or jittery enough. Come on, I can do better than that. Let's go, dude. Recap it like you mean it. Oh, it's in all white. Hold on. After Act 4, we begin Act 5, Act 1, otherwise known as Hive Band. We were introduced to 12 trolls from a planet called Alternia, which resides in another universe. We followed these trolls as they played on their own 12-player session of S-Burb, or to them S-Grub. To completion, a whole bunch of stuff happened along the way, and completed the game. They created a universe, our universe, home to Earth and our 4 heroes. But they were denied entry into the universe due to an encounter with an indestructible demon. This demon was the 4x prototype Jack Noir from the kids session and forced into the troll session due to a space-time rift that the kids would later cause, called a scratch. The trolls fled to the Vale, discovered the existence of the kids, and began trolling them. Then Act 5, Act 2 started. What? When did Act 5, Act 2 start? I don't know. Through a Trollian viewport, we see John's moments before the scratch is initiated, wearing his god-tier air breath suit in the land of heat and clockwork, Lohak. About to put in motion a plan he, the other kids, and the trolls all helped to orchestrate to cause the scratch. This is the first conversation Carcat ever has with John, and the last John has with Carcat pre-scratch. Carcat proceeds to troll John backwards through his timeline. John knows increasingly little, while Carcat gradually begins to understand more. Events from Carcat's perspective. 10 hours and 25 minutes before some critical moment, Jack arrives and destroys the gateway to the new universe. Aradia transports all the trolls to the Vale to hide. Her army of doomed duplicates takes on Jack. They're all destroyed. The trolls find a computer lab in the Vale and they stay there for most of the time remaining before the critical moment to occur at 0000. At 6:12 before critical moment, Jack destroys Prospect. Shortly before this, Kanaya chainsawed off Travers's legs to replace him with robotic legs supplied by Equius. At the sight of this, Carcat faints, and for the first time, his dream self wakes up on Prospect. He is awake for only a moment before he sees Jack, and finally recognizes him as Jack Noir, rather than the heretofore unidentified demon. Jack then kills him and all the other Prospect dreamers in the process of destroying the planet. Carcat remains asleep for an hour, until 5:12:30 before critical moment, exactly halfway through the countdown. While sleeping, post-dream Jack he dreams of horror terrors in the furthest ring, an experience anyone will have if sleeping after dream death. On waking up, he orders everyone not to sleep. He also wakes up to the news that the humans were discovered. Neither he nor the other trolls understand the significance of the humans right away. They were discovered when Teresi was wired 413 boom bombs a day on her future instructions. He urges Carcat to take a closer look at them. He dismisses them as irrelevant. It's not until later he makes the connection between Jack Noir in the kid session and the one hunting them down, recognizing them to be the same Jack, therefore placing the kids at fault for the current predicament. He then concedes of the plan to troll the humans as a futile form of payback and urges his team to follow suit with a compelling speech. He isolates John as the primary target of his hatred after watching him grow up. He is sure John has made it to be his missus, a romantic partner specific to troll culture centered around rivalry and loathing. In his first conversation with John in the air suit on Lohak, He professes these feelings clumsily. John cannot reciprocate. The outward exchange causes Karkat to trap himself into continuing backwards on John's timeline, and the trolling continues in reverse fashion until John's first conversation with Karkat. By then, Karkat has explained many things to John along his journey, things about the game, about his role as an ectobiologist, and about their shared chief adversary Jack Noir. In John's first conversation with Karkat needs to get in touch with Jade. It's at this point on Karkat's timeline he has finally understood enough that he knows he must begin making plans with the kids for their mutual benefit. Woo! Karkat attempts to get in touch with Jade, who continues to ignore him in a particular time frame due to his persistent previous harassment of her in years prior. He leaves a message to her months in the past telling her she needs to get in touch with him when her robot explodes. Her robot later finally does explode when her dream self is killed in the impact of Prosper's moon on the battlefield. When she wakes up, she remembers the message and contacts him, but she contacts him at a point in his timeline where he is not yet interested in hearing from her. He argues with her and is interrupted by his future self in a memo from a time where he is trying to contact her. He and his future self argue, and Jade mediates between the two, becomes angry and frustrated, and ceases the correspondence. By this point, the biggest meteor yet is approaching quickly, and she must enter the medium to escape. She requires John's assistance. He must recover the server disk, install it, and rescue her. Events from John's perspective. John sleeps on Bro's rocket board, flying along with the meteors of the reckoning. He lands back on his planet, the land of wind and shade, Loas. His dream self had awoken after Dream Jade pushed him to safety from the planet blast of Prosper's moon. His dream self now exists on the battlefield, awake whenever John sleeps. He wanders the battlefield with his robot bunny, who he would later name Liv Tyler. He sees his dad and Rose's mom and runs to meet them, but he wakes up before reaching them and his dream self disappears. The ring he was carrying falls into a ravine below, later to be recovered by WV ? Before his exile to post-apocalypse Earth. Briscoe was responsible for waking him up. Upon discovering John, she takes an interest in his advancement and uses her abilities to help him progress and set up critical events along his timeline. The only effect her abilities have on humans is to wake them up or put them to sleep. In this case, she woke him up so he would be able to recover the server disk about to come out of a parcel pixis. The disk had been deposited in the pipeline by PM some time ago. She and John continue to converse and he befriends her, oblivious to the true nature of her schemes. She functions as his patron troll, a troll who is particularly focused on helping one of the kids, like Teresi is with Dave and Kanaya is with Rose. John returns to his house and installs the server, but not before touching base with Rose, who is committed to cracking open the secrets of the game through dark magic. And Dave, who is from the future, having time traveled extensively over the course of the 24-hour reckoning period. John also encounters Nana, who gives him a pendant granting him the ability to summon her. She conjures a ghost bed for him and cooks it for him with a ghost oven. He floats on his bed high above Loas while he connects to Jade. Jade, who had woken up in her bed at the foot of the hill, returns to her house to find John setting up the equipment. John deploys the alchemizer and lathe in her greenhouse and the Cruxtruder in front of her fireplace. He opens the Cruxtruder and discovers there are 10 minutes and 25 seconds until impact. They discuss what to prototype with, if anything. Rose warns of the danger of failing to prototype, which would not allow the battlefield to heal, evolve to its final form, and grow the tumor inside, which is critical to her plan to destroy the Green Sun. John resolves to prototype with the blue doll missing an arm and eye to deliberately disable Jack, but Vriska puts him to sleep before he can. Becquerel then prototypes himself to destroy the meteor and save Jade. As he sleeps, John's ghost bed crashes into an oil ocean below. He loses his computer with the server disk on it, and then is pendant. He hops to a small island and he notices the ocean is on fire over the horizon and the fire is approaching. He talks to Rose, who informs him Jade entered while he slept and is safe. She tells him about a quest he'll need to go on later to recover the tumor from the battlefield and bring it to her. He then talks to Karkat, who was speaking to him for only the second time from Karkat's perspective. Karkat then explains exactly what the kids did that made him decide to troll them. He blames Jade for prototyping Beck, creating Beck Noir, who was now terrorizing the troll session, while blaming John for allowing it to happen. Meanwhile, the fire is approaching his island and has turned green due to Beck Noir's transformation, taking place during a duel with Bro and Dave's right elsewhere on Loas. John is contacted by Vriska, who admits to putting him in this position to challenge him, to realize his potential as the heir of Breath. Vriska is a terrible person. She also admits to deliberately playing a role in the creation of Beck Noir, wanting to be involved in his rise just as she also plans to be the one to kill him. She explains that regardless of her actions leading to his rise, his existence in the troll session is immutable. Due to the nature of paradox space, that outcome could not be changed with different actions. The only consequence of different actions would be an offshoot timeline in which all participants would be doomed. As the fire surrounds him, she encourages him to use his abilities, and with some coaxing from WV, who commands him from his station, he does the windy thing. The breeze surrounds Loas and puts out the fire completely and blows John to a larger landmass just outside a village. The breeze also clears the clouds from the sky, but they return shortly as the spell over the planet must be broken by other means. By unlocking this ability, he reaches the top of the Echo Ladder and becomes the air transparent. Vriska then informs him that the only thing left to do is reach the god tier, which is done by sleeping on his quest bed, which is nearby. She tells him to ask the locals about it. He does, and finds the quest bed beyond the village. He sits in the bed but isn't tired. Vriska gives him the choice of whether or not he would like her to put him to sleep. He agrees. While he sleeps, Jackmar finds him and stabs him through the chest, killing him. WV watches his death on the monitor and commands him to rise up. WV sees nothing but fireflies gather around John's body, while the quest bed glows. After the spectacle, there's no change. John's body remains motionless and the monitor shuts off. WV believes John has died. And he is right! But on the battlefield, his dream self appears lying on a corresponding quest bed. His dream self slowly takes on the signs of the wound inflicted on his real self as it rises. His dream self then takes over as his real self, with all wounds healed as the fully realized air breath. WV, pre-exile, watches this happen on the battlefield. He remembers this moment long after his exile, without understanding what transpired. But on Earth, WV believes he has just witnessed the end of John's quest. WV is still in possession of the ring and has accidentally locked himself in the station, and there is not enough power to unlock it. The only source of power is a lump of uranium which he ate hours ago. So he waits. John now wanders the battlefield poised to complete the objective he was given by Rose. Events from Rose's perspective. Rose uses her dark magic to search for ways to subvert the usual course of the game and overcome the futility of the situation with assistance from her paint-controlled Kanaya console from the gods of the furthest ring and information provided by Doc Scratch. Kanaya begins showing Rose, suspecting her to be the author of the game fact guide she read on Alternia, a figure she grew up idolizing, but she becomes disappointed with her due to a series of miscues resulting from her sporadic non-linear trolling. She continues conversing with her non-linearly, engaging in a feud of snarky one-upsmanship, gradually befriending her. She eventually realizes Rose is the true author of the guide when she watches her destroy the gate above her house with magic. She then continues helping her in a more linear fashion, uncovering the secrets of the game and sharing her own extensive knowledge of the game with her. Ultimately, as Kanaya begins to understand the true nature of Rose's plan, she becomes afraid Rose is dangerous. She is especially unnerved by the fact that soon on Rose's timeline, her viewport goes dark, and she can no longer be monitored. But she acknowledges she can do nothing to stop her, so she trains Aeryn to become a powerful white wizard of hope to challenge her as a joke. A particular target of Rose's investigation is the Green Sun. She rips apart underground ruins to retrieve information on it and is further informed by Doc Scratch on the subject. The Green Sun is a huge star nearly twice the mass of the universe. It resides somewhere in the furthest ring and serves as a power source to all First Guardians. Beck was Earth's first guardian, and when he became prototype, Jack inherited all his powers, which are supplied by the Green Sun. Doc Scratch is the first guardian of Alternia. Doc Scratch, like Beck, is a virtually omnipotent being with all the same powers. Unlike Beck, he is an intelligent host of those powers and is therefore also omniscient. His job is to pave the way for the arrival of his employer, an indestructible time-traveling demon called Lord English. Lord English can only enter a universe upon its death, at which point he travels back in time to an earlier point in the universe's lifespan to assume leadership of his gang of monsters called the Felt. His machinations, like Scratch's, are in part designed to bring about his own future entrance. Before the trolls begin their session, Scratch took measures to pave the way for English to arrive, as well as contribute to his own creation. First Guardians have circuitous, self-fulfilling origins, much like the players of Esberg. Beck was created in a lab through ectobiology by merging the ghost slime image of Grandpa's dog Harley with Rose's meow code. Scratch had a similar but yet unknown origin. Scratch manipulated several members of the Trolls party into playing Esberg in the first place. Notably, he manipulated Vriska into killing Aradia, who as a ghost became the primary orchestrator of the session. He was also used as something of a pawn himself by Terezi, and exacting revenge upon Vriska, causing her to lose an eye and arm. This was a key moment in a critical cycle of revenge leading to Terezi's blindness and awakening, Vriska's eventual death by Aradia's retaliation, and then Vriska's resurrection to the god tier as the thief of life. Having done everything he needs to do, Scratch tells Rose he wishes to die. Thus, the destruction of the Green Sun is to their mutual benefit, and Rose forms a plan. While she gave the short version of the plan to John, telling him he needed to recover the tumor, she tells the full plan to Dave. The tumor at the center of the battlefield is in fact a very powerful bomb, capable of destroying the Green Sun. She will go to sleep and John will bring it to her dream self. Meanwhile, Dave is to go to sleep and listen to the gods who will tell him how to find the sun. He will make a map and Rose will plot a course there and destroy the Green Sun in a suicide mission. Ideally, this will negate all Jack's powers, reducing him to a mortal status again. Events from Dave's perspective. After entering the gate above his apartment, Dave begins exploring Lohawk under the guidance of his patron troll Terezi. Her fascination with him was prompted by the money wire from his future self, which alerted her to the existence of the humans in the first place. He watched him grow up with his bro and made some observations about humanity through his upbringing. She then committed to helping him in part due to her rivalry with Vriska, who sought to make sure the human she favored John would outpace Dave. Over the course of the adventure, she coordinates with it for him. Dave experiences about 3 days chronologically due to looping through time and fulfilling the requirements of various time loops. The key objective is to make enough money for him to be able to wire into her in the first place, completing the time loop that started it all. The sum of money vastly exceeds what is typically gathered in a session, and it must be accumulated by manipulating the Lohawk Stock Exchange using time travel. Along the way, Dave and Terezi befriend each other, trading comics and perpetuating financial capers. In the early going, Terezi leads him into a pot of soup prepared by his crocodile consorts for no particular reason other than it needed to happen on his timeline. Doubtful of the need for her help, he nearly quit, but received assurance from his future self and continued exploring. He goes underground and discovers gold ruins. Before entering, he's interrupted by Karkat, who uses a memo to warn both him and John about their involvement with Terezi and Vriska, telling them the Scourge sisters are partaking in a dangerous game of rivalry-fueled flirtation, which has gotten both him and John killed at least once. Karkat speaks from a time in which he's aware of a plan developing which may lead to the kids and trolls meeting each other, and does not look forward to the results of the gathering if these trends continue. John and Dave disregard his advice. Dave proceeds into the ruins and finds a legendary sword, Califlush, locked in a block of gold. He breaks it to retrieve it, and is told by Dave's that the sword is critical to his personal quest as a Knight of Time. Terezi then tells him he is about to fall asleep without knowing Vriska was behind this nap as well. Dave goes to sleep, and Dave's defends him from a horde of powerful monsters. Before Dave wakes up, Dave's leaves to find Bro. He does and joins him in the battle against Jack. When Jade enters, Jack transforms into Beck Noir and defeats both of them. Bro was slain by his own sword, and the body is discovered by Dave later, who can't bring himself to retrieve the sword. While sleeping in the ruins, Dave's dream self wakes up again and wanders the moon. While in Rosamund, he looks up to the sky and takes off his shades. He gets his first glimpse of the gods. He then wakes up from hearing a gunshot fired by Jade as she battles him and quickly teleports away. The first of 3 times he sees her in this manner. He sees her again in Lohaxi, and again while visiting Jade's planet. He then goes on to make all the money needed to buy all the frame motives, which are powerful battle techniques purchased from consorts, and to reach the top of his equilator, but he still wanted to know why he would never be able to reach John's level. To satisfy his curiosity, Terezi gives him a choice somewhere in the middle of his timeline. The choice would be decided by a coin flip. He could now assign the outcome of the coin flip to mean he would either be shown now or later. The outcome of the flip, which Terezi did not even look at, was a constant. The 2 realities are created by his 2 possible decisions. The decision to be shown now creates a doomed reality wherein Dave becomes doomed. The decision to wait simply continues the alpha reality, and Dave remains the alpha Dave. Doomed Dave follows Terezi's instructions given to him before the flip. He is to go back in time, leaving his doomed timeline, and sleep on the quest bed. If he has what it takes to reach his god tier, he will. Alpha Dave, after waiting some time, was instructed to go to the bed to find Sleeping Dave and kill him, thus allowing him to face the true gravity of the decision. Dave doesn't go through with it and decides to end his collaboration with Terezi for the time being. Later, Doomed Dave wakes up and gets out of bed and is immediately killed by Jack. 3 minutes and 14 seconds before critical moment, Terezi watches and is upset by her involvement in his death. She runs off deeper into the lab. Dave travels to Jade's planet, the land of frost and frogs, Lothop. While standing in the snow, he sees Jade appear briefly while fighting an imp just she did before in the ruins. He contacts her and she mentions she has lost track of John. Dave tells her John's busy without mentioning he was in the process of rising to the god tier. He says John can no longer be her server player and they would have to make other plans. Dave tells her to deploy the IntelliBeam laser station in his apartment. The device allows very complex capture codes for certain items, like the S-Verb disk, to be read, which couldn't otherwise be read by the human eye. He then creates a copy of his own server disk and uses it to connect as Jade's server player. He becomes a server player for both Rose and Jade, though past Dave will stay concerned with Rose's connection, while he, as future Dave, will concern himself with Jade's connection. He deploys a new alchemiter and helps her upgrade it. With his massive reserve of grist accumulated in his travels and his more advanced torrenting capabilities, he allows Jade to alchemize some sophisticated equipment right away. Shit, let's be Santa. A bit later, she contacts him again after learning of his dead bro and dead doomed self. He assures her the dead Dave was just a doomed comic, he would be fine. He decides Jack needs to be stopped and they should come up with a better plan than Rose's suicide mission to help him. He suggests the idea is futile, but he lets her know she'd come up with her own decision regardless and he'd be able to talk later if needed. Events from Jade's perspective. A long recap. When Jade's dream self is killed, her robot explodes, destroying her room, causing her to fall. Beck transports her bed to break her fall. She falls asleep. Now dream dead, she has a dream in a bubble blown by a god in the furthest ring and makes Fefri. Fefri, a thirst dreamer, went to sleep to convince the gods to establish dream bubbles where they can meet while asleep, as long as their dream selves are dead. While she is asleep, 4 minutes and 13 seconds before the critical moment, Jack destroys the troll to Durst, killing her and all the Durst dreamers. She, along with all the other trolls and Jade, would then only dream of the furthest ring, where she met Jade and attempted to show her the gods were harmless. But Jade sees through the bubble and catches a glimpse of the gods. She wakes up with a headache, scared of what she saw, and resolves to stay awake. Fefri messages her and introduces herself as the one from the dream. It is the second time they have spoken. The first time was long ago from Jade's perspective. Jade realizes her robot is exploding, causing her to remember that was her cue to message Karkat. She does, and the aforementioned confusion takes place in the memo with past and future Karkat. Past Karkat berates her while future Karkat defends her. She reprimanded both of them for arguing with each other, who are the same person and separated by only 3 hours. Dave enters the memo and mocks future Karkat for his flirtation with Jade after the lecture he gave to John and Dave on the subject. Jade ends the conversation and is no particular hurry to get back to him about the important matter he wanted to discuss. The immediate impact is imminent. John connects with her and helps her prepare for entry. She makes her entry item for the pre-punch card, a tree sprouse in the alchemiter, and a green neck-shaped pinata dangles from a branch. A green blindfold appears over her eyes, which she cannot remove. She attempts to strike the piano with the butt of her rifle, which does no damage. Instead, it releases a burst of energy causing the greenhouse to explode, and Jade to fly out and fall. While falling, she takes a shot in the dark with her rifle. By this point, Beck has prototyped herself to become Beck Sprite and has destroyed the meteor with a massive green energy blast, releasing a huge shockwave spreading over the surface of the Earth, destroying much of what had already hadn't been by the meteor storm of the Reckoning. Beck Sprite then appears in front of the bullet and redirects it into the head of the pinata, destroying it. Jade, her house, and a large part of her island, including the volcano, are all transported into the medium on Lofoth. He falls to the snow of Lofoth, now unblindfolded. Beck Sprite again breaks her fall with a bed, and she again falls asleep. She has a recollection of sitting on her bed back on Earth some time ago working on John's Presidents. Then the Theft Free contacts her for the first time. Jade believes she is trolling her like the others, but she only means to reassure her what happened wasn't her fault, as well as inform her of her plan to establish the dream bubbles. But soon, both realize this is not a memory, but a dream they are currently sharing, with the memory as a stage. Mefree meets Jade in her room and compliments her on her work on the bunny. Mefree also claims to be dead. Jade wakes up again just as agitated as the first time she woke up. She gets out of bed and realizes her lunch shop is still in the destroyed greenhouse. She begins her ascent, but is interrupted by an encounter with an imp, which takes her on a trans-insphere journey, visiting many locations and passing by 3 instances of Dave, including a future Dave who ends up helping her later. The imp is finally killed by Beck Sprite. PM from post-apocalypse Earth, but just after discovering her station en route to the Frog Ruins, tries to issue commands to Jade through the terminal. Beck Sprite is alert to these commands and protectively destroys PM's terminal. Jade returns and finds her computer undamaged. Future Dave contacts her after seeing her out of the snow. He then becomes her server player and sets up her equipment after most of it was destroyed and transported before entry. As she prepares to alchemize new items, she is contacted by her fairy god troll, a distinction which does not necessarily have anything to do with being a kid's patient troll. Tavros seeks permission from her to commune with Beck again. The first time he did it was when she was very young and playing with her grandpa's flintlock pistol. She accidentally fired the gun at herself. Tavros commute with Beck to get him to transport the gun and the bullet away from her and toward her grandpa, who's picnicking with the blue doll, killing him. Tavros mistook him for an intruder, but regardless, Jade is upset by the revelation. He digs himself into a deeper hole by professing flushed feelings for her awkwardly, while making bold claims of high self-esteem and confidence granted from his new robot legs. Put off by this, she is not particularly receptive to his plan to commune with Beck Sprite to take on Jack Dor and ends the conversation. Vriska, who was reading the conversation, mocks Tavros for his false show of confidence. She continues to take jabs at him, calling him a coward, unable to do the one thing she asked him which would have given him real confidence. She refers to the incident preceding her resurrection to the god tier. After she was nearly beaten to death by Aradia, Tavros finds her, believing her to be dead. He attempts to bring her back to life with a kiss, but having woken up on Prospect after the beating, Vriska's dream self is able to control his mind. She makes him choke himself, simply to prevent the kiss to avoid the standard resurrection process, which would prohibit god tier ascension. She does not wish to control him completely, intending to leave the following decisions to him to make him stronger. Instead, she merely controls his hand to write messages to himself using her blood. She instructs him to take her to the quest cocoon, and to kill her on the sacrificial slab before she bleeds to death. He hesitates as she continues to insist while her dream self gradually takes on the same wounds inflicted on her real self, causing her demands to become more desperate. The more desperate she gets, the more terrified Tavros becomes, and he finally flees without killing her. She eventually dies and is resurrected on the battlefield as a thief of flame. Still holding this against him, she berates him for his newfound attitude and regards his plans to influence the kid's timeline as a cheap imitation of her tactics. She brags about the ways she has manipulated events on their timeline so far by practicing her abilities on Jade repeatedly, causing her to fall asleep frequently. She describes ways in which she has inserted her agenda into existing events, tipping off agents to the whereabouts of the Meow Code book, and other such incidents which contributed to the rise of Jack Noir, so she could claim responsibility for his existence before taking him on herself. Tavros becomes angry with her incessant mockery to the extent of her treachery and decides to seek her out to challenge her. She waits for him somewhere in the lab. After the conversation with Tavros, Jade alchemizes a number of items, one of which is a legendary rifle, Ahab's crosshair supplied by Aridin. Aridin, now believing himself to be a powerful wizard, feels he's surpassed the need for the weapon and gives it to Jade to fuel the rivalry he's mistakenly assumed she has with Rose, as payback for Rose's early dismissal of his black advances. Jade recognizes it as one of the weapons she included with the bunny for John. The weapons were provided by her pen pal, who she accidentally revealed to be her grandson from the future. The pen pal swore her to secrecy on the matter, so she did the same with Aridin, though he admitted this would be the last time he talked to any human regardless. Realizing the new rifle would serve as a sort of heirloom to her grandson, she decided to discard it outside her house and allow it to reach her grandson eventually, however it may. Aridin then blew up her Johnny Top. Another item she created was a pair of Junior CompuSuit Spectre goggles, allowing her to see anything in the Intimasphere at the present moment. She saw John as the air breath of the battlefield, Rose on Lohawk talking to Doc Scratch, Dave Sprite's pendant covered in blood nearby, Bro's dead body, and the slain Doomsday. She contacts Dave to make sure he's alright. She then comes up with a plan to take on Jack Noir. She contacts Tavros again to talk about the plan he proposed, but he has left to take on Vriska. She only has one idea left. She goes up to her grandpa's lab, so inspects Sprite, and tosses in her dead dream self, which her grandpa had retrieved from the battlefield and stuff many years ago. Next Sprite becomes Dave Sprite, but Dream Jade is not pleased with the transformation. She freaks out and releases the typical First Guardian pyrotechnics. The lab plummets, causing the column and greenhouse below. Crushing the column and greenhouse below. It bounces away from the house, rolling into a large snowball and settling near a green stump. The two Jades sit in a state of dismay amidst the rubble of the lab and the glow of a damaged fourth wall. As the clock ticks down to the critical event, the most important character in Homestuck sits and watches as pandemonium ensue. And then, the second most important character in Homestuck positions a shitty drawing of himself in front of a typewriter and writes this in recap. I think this typewriter's running out of ribbon ink. Thank God the white ink is such a pain in the ass to read, almost as much as these recaps are to write. Highlighting all that white text crashed my browser. Sorry, why don't we go back to what's happening on the other side of the code? Those poor girls are very upset and emotional, and we kind of left them hanging. And we're going to go ahead and keep leaving them hanging, because I'm going to stop this episode here. So, in the next episode, we're going to find out what's going on with the Jade and Jade Sprite, or Jade Beck Sprite. Bade Sprite? Whatever the hell she's called, we're going to find out what's going on with that in the next episode. So, this has been Anachi Sasuke. Thank you for sticking around for this episode of Homestuck. I believe it's episode 52. And I will see you guys next time. Later.